Hello, physical geology students. I'm making this video for you. It's September the 12th, 2020, and we're going to be doing an Igneous Rocks lab. And so what I'm going to do for you is cover the basics so you know how to do this Igneous Rocks lab. You're going to get a total of, let me see, 3, 6, 9, 13 different igneous rocks. And I'm going to make another video to show you those 13 igneous rocks. And what your job is to do is to figure out the names of the igneous rocks. And the rocks that you're going to look at include the following. You're going to get Andesat Tough, TUFF, and let me make a list here real quick. You're going to get a Northasite, you're going to get Rhyolite, and one thing you could do is look through your lab manual and read about these different igneous rocks. Look at the photographs of the rocks as well, and you can also look these up online. Andesite, gabbro, you're going to get basalt porphyry, you're going to get 2 granites, so you're going to get 2 of these. You're going to get diorite, pumice, up north they call it pumice, same thing, pumice, pumice, same thing, obsidian, and basalt, or basalt, depending on part of your country you're from. In the south, a lot of people call it basalt. So we got 13 different igneous rocks, and there they are: Andesat Tough, Northasite, Rhyolite, Scoria, Andesite. It's not, Andesite's different than Andesat Tough. Gabbro, Basalt Porphyry, 2 granites, Diorite, Pumice, Obsidian, and Basalt. And in this upcoming lab, I'm going to show you 13 samples, and you have to figure out what the names of those are. And there's 13 rocks, and here they are. Don't get these confused with minerals. These are rocks. They contain combinations of different minerals. In order to figure out which igneous rock is which, in your lab manual, there's a whole bunch of information that you can look at in your lab manual. And I'm looking at your lab manual right now. There's a real great chart on page 132 that can help you identify a whole bunch of these rocks. There's all kinds of information on all 13 rocks. So for every rock, you want to identify the color of the rock, the texture of the igneous rock. You want to figure out what minerals are in the rock, what minerals are in the rock sample that you have. You want to figure out the cooling rate. That means igneous rocks form from magma. That means molten or liquid rock. Really high temperatures. We're talking from 600 degrees Celsius all the way up to 1300 degrees Celsius. And then they cooled. And you know, for each igneous rock, you want to figure out how fast did the rock cool. Slow, fast, immediately, first slow, then fast. I'll show you how to do that. And the last thing you want to do is you want to figure out, is the igneous rock plutonic or volcanic? Plutonic igneous rocks cooled underground. Volcanic igneous rocks cooled on the Earth's surface. Okay, so for each rock, you want to figure out what color does it have, its texture, what kinds of minerals are in the rock, how fast did that rock cool, And you also want to figure out, is each of those 13 rocks, are they plutonic or volcanic? Do they cool underground or on the surface of the earth? First thing we want to talk about is color. Now, when you do the igneous rock color, don't put down green or orange or black or green or pink or whatever. In igneous rocks, we have these unusual words for color. We use, these are the 4 colors: ultramafic, mafic, intermediate, and felsic. Okay, I'll just tell you, an ultramafic rock. Okay, first of all, in order to understand this, you've never heard the word mafic or felsic before, right? Probably you've never heard it unless you've been around a geologist. Mafic means a dark colored igneous rock. Mafic, you never talk about mafic when you're talking about sedimentary or metamorphic rocks. Mafic is it means a dark colored igneous rock. And felsic means a lighter colored igneous rock. A lighter colored igneous rock would be felsic. And when you're talking about igneous rock color, there's 2 unusual aspects to it that I'm going to explain to you here. I know it's unusual, but think about it in this way, and it will all work in identifying igneous rocks. The darkest color for igneous rocks is not black. It's green. So a light green igneous rock is darker than a black rock. Okay? The darkest color for igneous rocks is green, even a light green. The lightest color for igneous rocks is pink, not white, not light gray, but pink. So your most felsic rocks are going to have some pink in them. And the pink in those rocks comes from the mineral orthoclase, by the way. And the green comes from the mineral olivine, which you studied earlier on. So, what color do you think an ultramafic igneous rock is going to be? Ultra dark. What's ultra dark? It's going to be green, right? So let's take a look at an ultramafic igneous rock. Oh, damn, I can't even do this. Okay, ultramafic igneous rocks. Green. Think green. Think some shade of green. Ultramafic means green. If you see a green or any green, you say it's ultramafic. Mafic rocks, on the other hand, are black or dark gray. So, for igneous color, mafic igneous rocks are black or a dark gray. Those are mafic rocks. Okay. Black or dark gray. Felsic igneous rocks, what color do you think they're going to be? What's the lightest color again? Pink. So let's take a look at some felsic rocks here. Here you have 6 igneous rocks here. Rhyolite, gabbro, andesite porphyry, diorite, peridotite, and granite. Which 2 of these 6 do you think is going to be felsic? Think about it for a moment. Look at the 6 rocks. Which 2 are felsic? Rhyolite is felsic, and granite is felsic because they have orthoclase in them. They're pink. So what are intermediate colored igneous rocks? Well, just as in life, things aren't black and white in life. There's always there's 50 shades of gray in life. And let's take a look at that. Intermediate igneous rocks are in between colors, such as a light gray. Or here's another one, a light gray. You might think that's felsic, but there's no pink in it, so it's intermediate. Or here's a type of igneous rock that is half dark colored minerals, half light colored minerals. It's called diorite, D-I-O-R-I-T-E, diorite. Some people call diorite the Dalmatian rock, or the crushed Oreo cookie rock, or the salt and pepper rock. It's half dark minerals. The dark minerals happen to be hornblende, and it's half white minerals. And the white minerals are plagioclase, feldspar. So this is an intermediate colored rock, diorite. So first thing, when you look at those igneous rocks that I'm going to show you in the next video that I'm going to give to you with the lab, figure out what color is it. Is it ultramafic, mafic, intermediate, or felsic? And if you finish that part, you got that part right, you got half the battle won to identify these rocks. Okay? Now, this is the next part. You absolutely have to get this right. Is the texture of the igneous rocks, of each of your igneous rocks, and the cooling rate. How fast did each cool? Okay. There are 6 textures, ladies and gentlemen, for igneous rocks: phaneritic, aphonetic, porphyritic, vesicular, also known as frothy. Either of those is okay. You can write vesicular or frothy. 5th type of igneous rock texture is glassy. And the 6th type is pyroclastic. Okay. So, let's cover them let's knock these out one at a time. First, I'll describe them, and then I'll show you pictures. Phaneritic igneous rock has crystals in it, or almost all of the crystals in the rock are visible to the naked eye. You don't need a microscope to see those crystals. They're big enough to see with the naked eye. You don't need a magnifying glass. Big crystals in it. An aphonetic igneous rock is an igneous rock that has small crystals in it. You could tell that that igneous rock has crystals in it by looking at it. I don't know why I have photos of Cartier pens here, but you can't see the individual crystals. So let's take a look at, compare the two first. If it has crystals in it, is it phaneritic or is it aphonetic? That's what we want to figure out. Take a look at these two rocks. Which one is phaneritic? A or B? A is phaneritic. It's got big crystals in it. B is aphonetic. It's got little crystals in it. You can tell that there's crystals in it because it kind of has a sugary look to it, but the crystals are so small you can't see them with your eye. The individual crystals are too small. That's it. So those are the main 2 textures, phaneritic and aphonetic. Big crystals, phaneritic; small crystals, aphonetic. 3rd texture is called a porphyritic texture. Only one of the 13 rocks that you're going to look at has a porphyritic texture. Porphyritic texture means that you have big crystals in the rock you can see big crystals in this rock too, surrounded by smaller crystals. The big crystals in a porphyritic rock are called phenocrysts. You don't need to know that, but and the smaller crystals are called the ground mass. But basically, porphyritic igneous rocks have big crystals surrounded by little crystals. Okay. 4th texture we're going to look at is called a vesicular texture, or frothy texture. Not well. That looks very tempting. Frothy hot chocolate. Okay, so a vesicular rock has air bubbles in it, like this one. This rock is called Scoria, S-C-O-R-I-A, or this one here is called Pumice, P-U-M-I-C-E, or pumice. It's got air bubbles in it, lots and lots of air bubbles, and then it's called pumice or scoria, which have a vesicular texture. Fifth one is fifth texture you need to be able to identify is a glassy texture. This rock here, which we call obsidian, has no crystals in it. It's made of glass. And by the way, glass is not a mineral because there's no crystals in it, right? So at UT, they always ask you a trick question. They give you a piece of obsidian. They say, what minerals are in this rock? There are none. It's made of glass. This is called a glassy texture. And obsidian, one of your 13 rocks will have a glassy texture. Sixth texture is called a pyroclastic texture. And any rock that has a pyroclastic texture has the word tough in it, T-U-F-F. And you're going to have one of your rocks has that word in it, T-U-F-F, tough. So, pyroclastic texture formed from explosive volcanic eruptions always has ash in it, volcanic ash. And it looks like that. This is, I don't know if you've ever seen volcanic ash before, but this is what good Lord. This is what a volcanic ash looks like. So if you have something that looks like this, it's a tuff, some kind of tuff, T-U-F-F. It's made of volcanic ash. And when the quiz comes around and you touch the rock, it has a little bit of a powdery feel to it. Then you know it has a pyroclastic texture. So what you want to do is figure out what color is the rock first, ultramafic, mafic, intermediate, or felsic. Then you want to figure out what texture does it have. Phaneretic, aphonetic, porphyritic, vesicular, glassy, or pyroclastic. Now, I'll tell you how about cooling rate too, because you need to figure that out for each igneous rock. Phaneretic rocks have big crystals in them, right? Well, the only way you're going to get big crystals in an igneous rock is if the magma cooled slow underground. So, phaneretic igneous rocks cool slow underground. They cooled slow. It takes time for those big crystals to grow, so the magma must have cooled slow. Aphonetic igneous rocks cooled fast. So fast that the crystals didn't have enough time to grow to be large enough to see with the naked eye. So aphonetic igneous rocks cooled fast. Porphyritic rocks have big crystals in them, surrounded by little crystals. So first they must have cooled slow underground. The magma must have cooled slow underground, allowing for those big crystals, those phenocrysts, to grow. And then it erupted onto the surface of the earth and cooled fast, forming the small crystals in between the big crystals. So, a porphyritic igneous rock cooled first slow and then fast. Vesicular igneous rocks, the ones with the air bubbles in it, the ones I showed you, cooled immediately. Not, suddenly, really fast. Holy Mother of God. Okay, images. Vesicular igneous rocks cool how fast? Immediately. Why? Because vesicular igneous rocks are made of frothy glass. It's made of a frothy glass. And if you've ever worked in a glass factory, or you know anybody who's worked in a glass factory, how is glass made? You take sand, you melt it, and you quench it, right? And so that there's no time for crystals to grow out. If you cool something immediately, there's not enough time to make minerals. Instead, you're going to make glass. So since vesicular rocks are bubbly glass or frothy glass, they cooled immediately. Glassy igneous rocks cooled immediately too. Because if you've got a rock made of glass, in other words, if the rock has a vesicular glassy texture, it must have cooled so fast that glass formed. And the last type of rock, pyroclastic igneous rocks, they also cooled immediately. So that there was a volcanic eruption and the ash was spewed out into the air and blown out for thousands of miles. So these three, vesicular, glassy, pyroclastic textures, they cooled immediately. Porphyritic igneous rocks cooled first slow then fast. Aphonetic rocks cooled fast. And phaneritic rocks cooled slow. Okay, just a few things before I get into the mineral. I'll do the minerals and igneous rocks last. But to figure out, is the igneous rock plutonic or volcanic, that's very simple. All of your phaneritic rocks are plutonic. They cooled underground. Plutonic igneous rocks cooled underground. Easy to remember. Pluto was the Roman god of the underground. Volcanic igneous rocks cooled above ground. And they include all of your other textures: aphonetic, porphyritic, vesicular, glassy, and pyroclastic. Okay, so for each igneous rock, you want to, for your lab, you want to write down plutonic or volcanic. If it's phaneritic, it's plutonic, and if it has any other texture, it's volcanic. Before I go into these minerals in the igneous rocks, which is the last thing we'll do, I want to show you what these 13 igneous rocks look like. Okay, let's start off with Andesat Tough. Okay, there's that word tough, right? It has a pyroclastic texture. It's made of volcanic ash. And this is what ash looks like. It could be, you can't just look at a photograph, ladies and gentlemen, and identify igneous rocks. Otherwise, people wouldn't be getting paid all that money to study these things. They come in different colors, but ash always has the same consistency. It sort of looks a little bit powdery, and there might be a few larger chunks in it, but most of it is fine grain ash. So that's your first rock, Andesat Tough. Next igneous rock we're going to look at is called anorthosite. And anorthosite looks like this. Can you see the crystals in this igneous rock? Yes, it's phaneritic. In fact, it's all the same color, dark gray. So it's got these big dark gray crystals in it. And anorthosite is an igneous rock that only contains one mineral. Most rocks contain many minerals. This one only, anorthosite, is made of one mineral, plagioclase feldspar. And it's got large, dark gray crystals. Anorthosite. Tell me, is it plutonic or volcanic? You should know. Okay, next rock is rhyolite. Rhyolite, I'll just tell you, is an aphonetic, light-colored rock. Rhyolite. This is what rhyolite looks like. Notice the pinkish color. Notice how the crystals all, or almost all, are too small to see with the naked eye. It's got an aphonetic texture. This is rhyolite. Next rock we're going to look at is scoria. Scoria, with a vesicular texture, is a dark colored igneous rock with air bubbles in it, vesicular, made of frothy glass. It comes in a variety of dark colors. It could be dark red, it could be dark black, it could be dark gray, but if it's dark and it's got a vesicular texture, it's scoria. Next rock we're going to look at is andesite. Andesite, named after the Andes Mountains in South America. Andesite has a light gray color usually, and you can see here almost all the crystals are too small to see with the naked eye, so it's got an aphonetic texture. This is an intermediate color because there's no pink in it, and it's definitely not mafic. Next rock we're going to look at is gabbro. A lot of people get this one wrong, so pay close attention. Gabbro, a phaneritic igneous rock found in the ocean crust. gabbro. What color is this rock? Tell me, ladies and gentlemen, what color is this rock? It's almost all dark minerals. It is mafic. Is it phaneritic or aphonetic? Big crystals. It's phaneritic. It is gabbro, made up of these dark minerals, which are hornblende, mostly, and pyroxene, another mineral. You didn't see that one in the lab. Next one's called Basalt Porphyry, and it's the only igneous rock that we have that has a porphyritic texture. So when you basalt porphyry, which is also called porphyritic basalt by some people, but we'll just use basalt porphyry, is a dark colored igneous rock with lighter colored big crystals in it. So it's got lighter crystals in it that are plagioclase feldspar that are visible to the naked eye, surrounded by darker crystals. And that's your basalt porphyry. Next is granite. Don't take anything for granite. You want to get this right. Granite is felsic. So what color is it going to be, ladies and gentlemen? If you're lucky enough to have granite countertops, you know. Granite has some pink in it from the orthoclase, the mineral orthoclase in it. Granite. Here's what granite countertops look like. Take a look at some actual granite samples. Okay, this is a granite. This is a granite. Always got some pink in it, doesn't it? There's always some pink in it, and it's got a phaneritic texture, big crystals. Beautiful rock granite, and we'll have 2 samples of that for you to identify. Next is diorite, D-I-O-R-I-T-E. I showed you that earlier, but I'll show you one more time. Some people call it the Dalmatian rock. Diorite, intermediate in color, half dark minerals, which is hornblende, and half light minerals, which is plagioclase. Diorite. Next is pumice, or pumice. Pumice is a light colored igneous rock with a vesicular texture, made of glass, frothy glass, cooled immediately. Pumice. And when the quiz comes around, if you think it's pumice, one way you could test is that pumice will float in water. It'll float in water. Next rock is called Obsidian, and it has a glassy texture. It's made of glass. Obsidian. Made of glass. Some different types of obsidian you can see here. Okay, and some of these, I mean, when you do a Google search, sometimes you're going to get stuff that's not right, like this car is obsidian, you know, but you can tell which ones are which. Okay, next, basalt or basalt. Let's take a look at basalt or basalt. Up north, people say basalt. Down south, a lot of people say basalt. Same thing. It's a dark colored aphonetic rock. This is what the oceanic crust is made of. The ocean crust is made of this volcanic rock, basalt, and underneath the basalt is gabbro. The continents are made of more felsic igneous rocks, like granite and diorite, rhyolite and andesite. Anyway, basalt. Okay, those are your 12 igneous rocks. And then, when you want to identify the minerals, go to this place on the internet, and you'll get this chart. And it'll tell you what minerals are in the rock. These are your felsic rocks. If it's a felsic rock, it'll have orthoclase in it, quartz, plagioclase, feldspar, mica, and amphibole. If it has intermediate in color, it'll be right here, and it'll be plagioclase, feldspar, mostly mica, and amphibole. And if it's a mafic rock, it'll be more pyroxene and plagioclase feldspar mostly. If it's an ultramafic rock, it'll be over here. It'll have olivine in it. That's what gives it its green, and it's pyroxene. So you'll be able to identify the minerals in those igneous rocks. Okay. So, hope this helps you.